8 reasons women resent their husbands after 60 and how to fix it. Aging marriage and senior wisdom. There's something many women don't say out loud, but deep down, they feel it every single day, that the loneliest moments often happen right next to the person they married. Have you ever noticed how, as the years go by, some women begin to feel more distant, even quietly resentful toward their husbands? It's something many long-term couples experience, even if they never talk about it. What used to be a deep emotional bond can slowly turn into daily tension, quiet disappointment, or emotional silence. But why does this happen? Why do so many women, after decades of raising children, holding families together, and growing older side by side, find themselves feeling emotionally drained, unappreciated, or even bitter toward the very person they once dreamed of growing old with? In this video, we'll uncover the real, often hidden reasons behind this emotional shift. From unmet emotional needs to years of invisible labor, there are clear patterns that, left unspoken, can slowly chip away at even the strongest relationships. And the hardest part? These changes usually don't happen overnight. They build up little by little, so gradually that many couples don't even realize what's happening, until one day the warmth is gone. All that's left is distance, silence, and regret. But here's the hopeful truth. Once we understand what's really going on, we can begin to change it. Whether you're in a long-term marriage or reflecting on one from the past, it's never too late to reconnect, to heal, and to rediscover the partnership you once cherished. Stay with me until the end, because what you hear today might shift how you see your relationship, and give you a new way forward. These aren't just petty complaints or passing frustrations. They're emotional truths that build slowly and silently over the years. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, I invite you to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a video that supports your journey. If this topic speaks to you, leave a 1 in the comments. If not, feel free to type 0. Your honest feedback helps us grow and improve for this community. Now let's dive into the very first reason. She feels like a roommate, not a wife. Love doesn't disappear in a flash. Often it slips away silently, through long days of polite routines and longer nights of quiet disconnect. 2 people can share a roof, a meal, even a bed, and still feel worlds apart. The absence of conflict doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means the connection has simply gone quiet. Let me tell you the story of Amanda. Amanda still lives in the same house she and her husband built nearly 40 years ago. Every morning, he brews the same pot of coffee, watches the news quietly in his chair, and sits across from her at the breakfast table, just like always. From the outside, nothing seems out of place. Their life moves in a steady rhythm, unchanged. But inside, something feels different. Something feels empty. She can't quite point to when it started. There was no big fight, no betrayal, just the slow fading of warmth. The long walks turned into short nods across the kitchen. The late night conversations became short exchanges about bills, groceries, or appointments, and the soft touches, the lingering glances, the little sparks that once made her feel cherished. They simply disappeared. Amanda once described it this way. My husband didn't do anything wrong. He just stopped doing the little things that made me feel like his wife. Now I feel more like someone he lives with, not someone he loves. She still sits beside him on the couch, but their eyes stay fixed on separate screens. She still sleeps in the same bed, but she falls asleep feeling like no one sees her. There's no drama, no raised voices, just the quiet ache of drifting apart. And perhaps that's what makes it so painful, because when the closeness fades without warning, it doesn't leave a scar. It leaves silence. This isn't just Amanda's story. It's one many women live through quietly. A 2022 study by AARP revealed that 56% of women over the age of 60 feel emotionally alone, even while still married. Not physically alone, emotionally alone. And that kind of loneliness cuts deeper than most people realize. It's the kind that lingers even when someone else is in the room. When a woman no longer feels seen, when the conversations become shallow and the affection disappears. Resentment doesn't arrive all at once. It builds quietly like dust gathering in the corners of a once lived-in home, and over time it settles into her spirit until she no longer recognizes the connection she once fought so hard to preserve. But here's the part no one tells you. Many couples mistake emotional distance for peace. They assume that if there's no arguing, everything must be fine. But silence isn't always harmony. Sometimes silence is surrender. So what can you do when love feels like it's fading? It doesn't have to be grand gestures or dramatic changes. Reconnection starts in the smallest of ways. Try spending just 15 minutes together each evening. No screens, no distractions. Sit together, look into each other's eyes, and instead of asking what needs to be done tomorrow, ask something deeper. How was your day? What made you smile? What wore you down? Even the simplest check-in can reopen doors you thought had long been shut. And if it feels awkward at first, that's okay. Rebuilding closeness after years of emotional drift takes time. But every effort, every honest question, every listening ear is a step back toward one another. It's never too late to move from being housemates back to being soulmates. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you and your husband are just existing in the same space without truly connecting? If that resonates with you, type the word roommate in the comments, not because you're alone, but because you're not. And when one woman speaks up, it makes space for others to feel seen too. If this part of the video spoke to your heart, please give it a like. Share it with someone who needs it, and don't forget to subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, a place where life after 50 is honored and where we speak gently about the truths no one else wants to say out loud. Reason 2. Unresolved conflicts that were never addressed. Emotional distance doesn't always begin with silence. Sometimes it begins with the conversations that never happened, the apologies never spoken, the feelings brushed aside. Left unhealed, small wounds become invisible weights that push two people further and further apart. And after years of carrying them, even the strongest heart begins to close. Patricia had been married for over 45 years. To most people, her marriage looked stable, even admirable. She and her husband had a lovely home in Florida, shared a quiet retirement, and were often seen walking their dog together in the evenings. But inside, Patricia carried something no one else could see. It wasn't a dramatic betrayal or a single devastating moment that changed things. It was the accumulation of small hurts, things he said that stung but were never taken back, promises he forgot, disappointments she never voiced out loud. Over the years, they built up like tiny cracks in a wall. Not enough to destroy it right away, but enough to weaken the foundation little by little. She remembered birthdays he forgot, arguments that ended with silence, not resolution. The time she cried quietly in another room because she didn't want to start another fight. And even when she tried to speak up, he'd brush it off. You're overreacting. It's in the past. Why bring it up now? So eventually, she stopped trying. Not because she had nothing to say, but because she no longer believed he would listen. Dr. Julie Gerner, a clinical psychologist, once said, unspoken wounds become the quiet killers of emotional intimacy. And for women like Patricia, that couldn't feel more true. When emotional pain is minimized, when apologies never come, and when closure remains out of reach, it creates a distance that no amount of routine or tradition can fix. A woman may still cook dinner, still say goodnight, still show up, but inside she's retreating, quietly, slowly. And with each silent wound left unattended, the resentment grows. The danger here is subtle, because when a woman stops speaking up, it doesn't mean everything is okay. It often means she has given up. But healing, even after decades, is still possible. Not by forcing a confrontation or reliving every argument, but by gently naming the things that hurt. One way to begin is through a practice called the forgiveness journal. Write down just 3 things you've been holding on to, 3 small moments that still feel unfinished. Then choose one, not to blame, but to begin a conversation. You might say, there's something I've been carrying for a long time. I don't want it to stay between us anymore. That sentence alone can open a door that's been closed for years. And even if your partner isn't ready to walk through that door, you'll know that you chose to release the weight. You chose healing over silence. Let me ask you something. Is there a moment in your marriage or in your past that you never truly healed from? If so, type the word heal in the comments below, because naming it is the first step toward letting it go. And when you do, you give permission for others to do the same. As we reflect on the power of healing, it leads us into something just as quiet, but even more painful: the slow loss of affection and intimacy. Let's talk about what happens when a woman no longer feels wanted or loved in the way she once was. Reason 3. She's criticized or compared for her appearance as she ages. Time may change a woman's body, but it should never erase her worth. Yet for many, aging becomes something to be judged rather than honored. When the compliments stop and the criticism begins, a woman doesn't just feel unseen. She starts to feel undesired. And that can wound deeper than most people will ever realize. 3. She's criticized or compared for her appearance as she ages. Emily turned 70 last spring. She was once a school counselor, the kind of woman who always remembered birthdays, who knew how to make everyone in the room feel seen. And yet now, after decades of giving so much of herself to others, she feels invisible in her own home. The comment came casually on a Sunday morning. Her husband, flipping through old photo albums, looked at a picture of them from their honeymoon and said, "You used to look better." He didn't say it with malice. He didn't even seem to realize the weight of those words, but Emily did. They landed like a stone in her chest. That moment, though small, opened a door to years of quiet pain. Because it wasn't just that comment. It was the subtle glances, the absence of compliments, the sense that he no longer saw her as a woman, but only as someone he lived with, as someone who was aging. She started to question her worth, to look in the mirror and only see what was lost, not what still remained. This isn't vanity, it's something deeper. Something that lives in the heart of every woman who once felt beautiful in her partner's eyes and now wonders if she's faded from view. A study by the Mayo Clinic in 2021 found that when older women are criticized or made to feel ashamed of their appearance, it significantly lowers their self-worth. Over time, this emotional erosion can increase the risk of depression and emotional withdrawal, especially in long-term relationships where affection has already diminished. And it's not just what's said aloud. Sometimes it's what isn't said. The compliments that never come, the soft gaze that never returns, the sense of being looked past instead of looked at. What many partners don't understand is this: women do not stop wanting to feel beautiful, to feel admired, to feel chosen, even after 60, 70, or 80. When that desire is met with silence, or worse, criticism, it doesn't just bruise the ego, it wounds the soul. So what can you do when the words sting and the silence hurts even more? Start by giving the pain a voice. Instead of holding it in, say it gently but firmly. "That hurt me. I need kindness, not judgment." Because boundaries are not about pushing others away. They are about protecting what's still tender within us. Then turn inward and reclaim your worth through self-care, through rediscovery. Pick up the hobby you gave up. Wear the dress you thought was too bright. Go for that walk not to lose weight, but to feel the wind on your face. Let your reflection be a reminder of the life you've lived, not a list of things you've lost. Beauty doesn't vanish with time, but the world, and sometimes the people closest to us, need reminding. And now let me ask you something from the heart. Has anyone ever made a comment about your appearance that left a mark, even years later? If so, I invite you to share your voice in the comments. You can write one sentence, one word, or just type, "I hear you." Because your story, your pain, and your strength matter. If this moment in the video touched you, please consider giving it a like and share it with someone who may need to feel seen. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, a space where every wrinkle is honored, every experience is valued, and every voice is welcomed. In a world that often forgets women after a certain age, here you will never be invisible. Now, let's talk about another reason resentment can quietly build. When a woman feels she's been giving, sacrificing, and showing love for years, only to feel completely unappreciated in return. Reason 4, she's tired of being taken for granted. There's a certain kind of exhaustion that doesn't show on the outside. It comes from being the one who always remembers, always cares, always gives, without ever being thanked. Love shouldn't be a one-sided weight. And when one person carries the emotional load for too long, even love can begin to feel like labor. Nancy spent her entire adult life giving. She planned every family vacation, packed every lunch, remembered every anniversary, folded every shirt, and smoothed over every argument. She didn't just run a household. She held the entire family together like the invisible thread no one noticed, but everyone relied on. Now at 72, retired from her career as a respected school principal in California, she finds herself asking a quiet question she never dared to voice before. Did anyone ever really see what I gave? Because the truth is, no one ever asked her how she was managing. No one ever thanked her for making things look so easy. They just expected it. And maybe that's what hurt the most. It wasn't that they didn't care. It's that they forgot to notice. They forgot that even the strongest women need to be seen. Nancy isn't bitter. She's just tired. There's a kind of exhaustion that goes beyond physical fatigue. It's the weariness that comes from pouring out love, patience, effort, year after year, with no one pouring anything back. And over time, that imbalance doesn't just wear down the body, it wears down the heart. According to the U.S. Institute of Gerontology, one of the leading reasons older women emotionally withdraw from their marriages is the belief that they've been the only ones holding it all together. That sense of being the only one trying. It builds into quiet resentment, not explosive, not loud, just that silent drift into emotional distance. But here's something important to remember. Resentment is not weakness. It is a signal, a quiet inner voice saying, I need to be acknowledged. I need to matter again. So how do we begin to repair something that's been neglected for so long? Start not with blame, but with reflection. Not with anger, but with truth. Instead of raising your voice, raise your presence. Look your partner in the eye and say, softly, honestly, you know, sometimes I just wish you'd notice what I still do for us. That sentence may feel small, but it holds incredible power. It's not a demand. It's a mirror. And sometimes people need to see their reflection before they recognize what they've taken for granted. And if no one else says it today, let me be the one. Thank you for the meals cooked, the tears wiped, the silent sacrifices made without applause. Your love was never small. It was just quiet. But today, let it be heard. And now, if you've ever felt invisible in your own home, if you've ever wondered whether anyone truly sees you, I invite you to type the word seen in the comments. Not just for yourself, but for every woman who's still waiting for someone to notice. If this message spoke to your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear these words, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, a space where women are not only heard but honored. Because even the most giving hearts deserve to receive, let's talk about what happens when life changes, but he doesn't. When you begin to grow, evolve, and rediscover yourself, but the man beside you stays exactly the same. Reason 5, he refuses to grow. With her, growth is natural, necessary, beautiful. But when one partner begins to evolve, to rediscover joy, passion, curiosity, and the other chooses to stay still, that difference can quietly divide even the closest of hearts. Not because the love is gone, but because the journey is no longer shared. Helen spent most of her life taking care of others. She worked as a librarian in New York for nearly 35 years, raised 2 children, supported her husband through career changes, and made sure their home was always a place of warmth and stability. But now at 67 and newly retired, she's discovering something she never expected, the desire to rediscover herself. She wants to travel to places she's only seen in books. She wants to join a book club, take up watercolor painting, try Tai Chi in the park. She wants to live, not just exist, not extravagantly, but intentionally. Meaningfully, joyfully. But her husband? He's perfectly content with how things are. He spends his afternoons watching TV, reading the same newspaper, sitting in the same recliner, day after day. And every time Helen suggests doing something new together, he shrugs it off. I'm fine the way things are, he says. What he doesn't realize is she's not. And that's where the heartbreak begins. Because when a woman starts to grow, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and her partner refuses to grow with her, the gap between them quietly widens. It doesn't always come with arguments. Sometimes it just comes with silence. And eventually, she stops asking. She stops suggesting. She stops dreaming out loud because it hurts more to be dismissed than to say nothing at all. The Harvard Aging Project released a study in 2023 that found something powerful. Couples who continue to grow together emotionally report 62% higher long-term marital satisfaction. In other words, when both partners stay curious about life, about each other, the love doesn't just survive. It evolves. But when only one person changes, the relationship begins to feel like a cage. Helen never wanted to leave her husband behind. She just wanted him to walk beside her, to explore this new chapter together. But when he chose comfort over curiosity, familiarity over evolution, she was left to make a difficult choice. Stay stagnant or move forward alone. If you've ever been there, you know how lonely that road can feel. So what can you do when you feel like you're outgrowing the relationship, but still want to honor the love you've built? Start by inviting, not insisting. Share your dreams without demanding someone else share them. Say things like, I'd love to try this, and I'd love for you to come with me. And if they say no, that doesn't mean you have to say no to yourself. Go anyway, grow anyway, live anyway. But keep the door open, keep talking. Keep sharing your joy, not to make them feel guilty, but to remind them what's still possible. Because sometimes people just need to see the light in your eyes before they remember the spark in their own. Let me ask you this. Do you ever feel like your dreams are no longer shared, like you've grown, but he hasn't? If that speaks to your heart, comment the word grow below, because your growth is not selfish. It's sacred. And naming that longing out loud might just be the first step toward honoring it. If this part of the video moved you, please take a moment to like it. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that it's okay to keep evolving, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where aging is not about slowing down, but rising into who we were always meant to become. Now let's turn to something even more invisible, but equally heavy. The mental load women carry, quietly, every single day, without ever being asked how it feels. Reason 6. She carries the emotional labor alone. Love isn't just what we feel, it's what we do. And behind most strong marriages is someone silently carrying the mental load, remembering everything, organizing everyone, holding everything together. When that weight is never shared, it doesn't just lead to burnout, it leads to quiet resentment, even in the most loyal of hearts. Lena, now 70, spent most of her adult life as a teacher, a patient, thoughtful woman from Pennsylvania who remembered every birthday in her classroom, every student's favorite book, and every little detail that made others feel special. She carried that same quiet attentiveness into her home life. For years, she was the one who kept everything running. Not just the chores, but the heart of the family. She remembered to schedule doctor's appointments, made sure the grandkids got birthday cards on time, organized holidays, called her husband's sister just to check in, made the Thanksgiving menu, picked out gifts, set the tone, kept the peace. And she did it all without being asked, and more painfully, without ever being thanked. No one noticed the way she carried it all. Not out of obligation, but out of love. But even love needs to be refilled. And after decades of keeping it all together, Lena realized something heartbreaking. She was exhausted. Not because the work was too hard, but because she was doing it alone. This invisible weight, the constant remembering, the emotional management, the being there for everyone, has a name: emotional labor. And as psychologist Dr. Susan David from Harvard explains, emotional labor, when unshared, leads to emotional burnout and disconnection. And that's exactly what Lena felt. She hadn't fallen out of love, but she had grown tired of feeling like the only one holding the strings of the life they built. She missed being cared for, not in big, dramatic ways, just in the small moments that say, "I see you." What many people don't realize is that emotional labor is relentless. It doesn't show up on to-do lists. It shows up in the background, in the worry, the mental tracking, the quiet presence that keeps everyone else afloat. And when one person does it all, year after year, with no acknowledgement, it doesn't just wear them out, it wears down the relationship. So how do we change that? Not with blame, but with a clear, calm voice that says, "I'd like help planning Thanksgiving this year. Can we share the work?" It's not about keeping score, it's about being seen. And asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because emotional labor isn't meant to be a one-person job. It's meant to be shared by people who care for each other, equally and intentionally. And maybe, just maybe, if more women start speaking up, then more men will start tuning in. Let me ask you gently, are you tired of being the only one who keeps it all together? If that feels true for you, type the word balance in the comments below. Because naming the weight is the first step towards setting it down. If this part of the video resonates with your heart, please take a moment to like it, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where your effort is honored, your voice is heard, and your presence deeply matters. And now let's turn to something even more tender. What happens when affection fades and a woman no longer feels desired, even by the person who once made her feel beautiful just by the way he looked at her? Reason 7. She no longer feels desired or affectionately loved. Being loved is one thing. Feeling wanted, seen, touched, desired is something else entirely. And for many women, that subtle shift in how their partner looks at them or stops looking altogether can break the deepest part of the bond. Affection isn't about romance. It's about being reminded that you still matter. Sarah, 71 years old, retired from her job as a secretary in Arizona 5 years ago. She has a quiet home, a garden she loves, and a husband she spent nearly 5 decades beside. But lately, she's been wondering something she never expected to ask herself. Do I still feel like a woman? Or just someone who shares the bills and the calendar? It's been years since he reached for her hand while walking. Even longer since he complimented her outfit or touched her face just to say she was beautiful. There's no more playful teasing, no more soft glances across the room, no more just because kisses in the kitchen. She doesn't need grand gestures. She doesn't need a second honeymoon, but she misses being looked at with tenderness. She misses being touched. Not out of routine, but out of desire. She misses feeling seen. And slowly, quietly, that absence has begun to shape the way she sees herself. This isn't just about physical intimacy. It's about emotional affirmation, the feeling of being wanted, of being attractive, of still mattering in a way that's more than functional. The Cleveland Clinic has long studied the effects of aging and intimacy, and their findings are clear. A lack of physical affection in older adults, especially women, can lead to a significant decline in both mental and physical health. Not because of vanity, but because affection is connection, and connection is what keeps the soul alive. When a woman no longer feels desired, it's not just her body that aches, it's her spirit. And yet so many women, like Sarah, carry this quiet ache with grace. They smile, they host family dinners, they say they're fine, but deep down they miss the warmth, the affirmation, the sense of being adored. So how do we bring back what's been lost? Not with pressure or confrontation, but with gentle intention. Start small. Look your partner in the eyes when you speak. Reach for their hand without needing a reason. Say something kind, even if it feels awkward at first. Sometimes, just one compliment, one honest moment of affection can unlock a door that's been closed for years. And if your partner doesn't meet you there right away, don't let that stop you from giving love. Because love doesn't always have to be returned immediately to be worth offering. And sometimes, it's your courage to show up again that softens the silence. Let me ask you something tender. Do you miss the warmth in your relationship? If this part touched something inside you, drop A in the comments below. Because chances are, someone else is reading them and realizing they're not alone. And if this message spoke to your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where aging doesn't mean fading and love still has room to grow. Next, let's explore the most painful realization of all. When, after everything, a woman starts to feel like she and her husband have simply grown apart. Reason 8. They've simply grown apart emotionally. Some losses happen without anyone noticing. The loss of connection, of deep talks, of knowing glances across a room. And one day, you realize you're living beside someone you no longer truly know. Not out of anger, not out of betrayal, but because time passed. And no one noticed you stopped growing together. Anna is 75 now. She lives in Washington and spent most of her life as a social worker, listening, supporting, helping others find their way back to each other. But in her own marriage, she's lost that path. She and her husband have been together for over 50 years. They raised a family, built a life, weathered hard seasons. But lately, she's begun to feel like she's sharing her home and her life with someone she no longer truly knows. They still eat dinner together, still fall asleep in the same bed. But the conversations that once stretched long into the night have shrunk into quiet routines. What time's the appointment? Did the mail come? Can you pass the salt? They talk, but they don't connect. The laughter is quieter. The curiosity has faded. And the saddest part? She misses being truly seen by the one person who once knew her best. She tries sometimes. She'll ask about his thoughts on something meaningful, a memory, a dream, even a worry, and he'll give a short answer or change the subject. And each time, a little piece of her retreats further inward. According to the Johns Hopkins Relationship Institute, 60% of women over 65 say they feel emotionally estranged from their partner after more than 30 years of marriage. That word, estranged, it's not about physical distance. It's about feeling like strangers, even while sitting side by side. Anna doesn't feel angry. Her presence faded into the background. But here's the truth that brings hope. Emotional connection isn't something that simply disappears forever. It fades, yes, but it can also return. And sometimes, rebuilding starts with the simplest act of all, walking and talking. Not in the living room, not while the TV hums in the background, but outside, together, in motion. One walk a week, no phones, no errands, just your feet and your hearts. You don't have to start with deep things. Ask how they slept, what memory came back to them this week, what they used to love that they haven't done in years. Let silence exist, but stay present, because sometimes just walking side by side is enough to remind you that you're still walking the same path, even if you've lost sight of each other for a while. Let me ask you something tender. Do you sometimes find yourself wondering where the connection went? If so, type the word reconnect in the comments below, because naming that desire is the first step toward nurturing it. You're not alone in that longing, and there's still time to turn toward one another, one quiet step at a time. If this story touched something in your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where love, even after years of silence, still has a chance to be heard again. And now let's take a moment to breathe together and reflect on everything we've explored today. The hidden reasons resentment grows in long-term marriages, and the quiet, courageous ways we can begin to heal. Maybe somewhere along the way, the warmth faded, not because you stopped loving, but because no one taught us how to keep love alive when life gets hard, when routines take over, when silence becomes easier than speaking truth. What we shared today wasn't just a list of problems. It was a window into what so many women carry in silence, the longing to feel seen, to feel chosen, to feel like a partner, not a burden, not a background presence, not just someone who's always there. But here's what I hope stays with you. You are not too much. You are not asking for too much, and it is not too late. You still deserve affection. You still deserve effort. You still deserve to feel like someone's person, even after all these years. So where do we begin? Start with one honest moment, not a fight, not a breakdown, just a whisper of truth. I miss feeling close to you. I'd like us to try again. Start with one shared walk, one meaningful glance, one thank you that's long overdue. And most importantly, start with yourself. Reclaim your joy. Reignite your curiosity. Return to the parts of you that once felt vibrant and alive and worthy, because you still are. This journey of love, of healing, of reconnection isn't about fixing someone else. It's about choosing to show up again with tenderness, with courage, and with the belief that you are worthy of being loved fully, gently, and out loud. If any part of this video felt like your story, know that I see you, and you are not alone. Leave a comment below, even just one word, to let us know you're here. Because your voice matters, and your truth could be the light that helps someone else find their way back to hope. If this message touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where growing older means growing deeper, not growing silent. Let's keep building a community where every woman feels valued, where experience is honored, and where healing is always possible. We're walking this path with you, and we'll be right here, every step of the way.